August of 2022. I've just broken up with the girl who I've been with for about a year and a half, and so now I have loads of time on my hands. Now, I could have used this time to my advantage to start developing myself, making money, grinding, pretty much just doing exactly what I am now. But instead, I actually started smoking bongs every single day, started watching porn even more than I already was. 2 times a day turned to 3, turned to 4, to 5, to 6. And I'd say about a week into doing that, it just became a part of my routine and it had taken control of my life. I'd wake up, smoke, watch porn in the shower, head to school, come home from school early, watch it 2 or 3 more times before the gym, come back home from the gym, watch it, and then I'd do 2 back to back right before I'd go to bed. And bro, words can't even express how fucking draining this cycle was for me. I'd go to bed so fucking tired, but unable to sleep because of the amount of stimulus that I just applied to my brain. I'd wake up tired as fuck, even after having had 8 hours of sleep. It was like the life had been sucked out of me because I was consuming so much of this shit. It literally had control of my life. And I don't say this lightly. It got to the point where I was going into the disabled bathrooms at school, and I would have a fap at school. This had a terrible effect on my mental health as well, because not only had I now pedestalized women, but I had become so dependent on that stimulus that I tried to distance myself and separate myself from any scenario where I may have to talk to anyone, let alone women. I became more and more self-conscious. My confidence began to diminish. I didn't have friends at this point in time. I stopped talking to anyone. And I just became so fucking dependent on this external source of dopamine. I literally could not sit and talk to a girl for longer than 30 seconds because I had put them so high up on the pedestal that I had turned them in my brain into objects, right? I was no longer looking at them like they were just another human being. I was looking at them like they were objects, because this is what it does to your brain. And I know so many of you guys watching can relate to that, but it's never spoken about, yet it's so common. Now, after about a month of just repeating this shit over and over again, watching it 4, 5, 6 times a day, I was like, you know what? I need to quit. This is fucking with my mental health. And this was before I knew anything about how bad it actually was for you. I just knew, based off of what I was feeling, that this can't be good for me. I'm feeling terrible. It's so draining. I can't speak to women anymore. I'm avoiding social situations. I no longer have friends. And it's all stemming from watching this shit. But I tried to stop. I couldn't. I kept relapsing on the first day. I'd get through the whole day and then I'd have 2, 3 wanks at the end of the day. And the more I did it, the more dependent I became on this cheap dopamine. Porn, parties, drugs, video games, you name it. I was doing it all. All of these vices were in my life and I depended on them to get through my day-to-day experience. I literally tried to stop for months. Even when I managed to quit smoking cones, which was a fucking tough battle in itself, I still couldn't kick the porn. Stopping smoking only helped the tiniest bit. I'd get 3, maybe 4 days in, and then I'd relapse. And then because, it's day 1 again, I'll relapse another 5 or 6 times. Again and again and again. Now, I know my bro Jack just made a video talking about this, and he goes into how he was getting withdrawals from not watching it, similar to what an addict would from not taking a substance. And I completely agree, because I will say that stopping watching this stuff was harder for me than it was to actually go through the withdrawals of stopping the smoking cones. And bro, that is no fucking joke. Quitting the bongs is fucking tough. You feel sick, you feel nauseous, you don't feel like speaking to anyone, you can't sleep, you get cold sweats, and this all goes on for like 2 to 3 weeks. But I will literally say quitting this shit was so much fucking harder. It literally got to the point where I could no longer get a chub without watching porn. It was that bad. I had literally fried my brain to the point where I could no longer be aroused without some sort of visual stimulation. That is fucked. And this cycle just kept on repeating itself again and again and again until June of 2023. At this point, I'd finally gotten a job, but I'm still watching it. I remember one day I was so down bad at work. I hadn't watched it in like 4 days. I was going well. So I'd go and bust one out in the work bathroom. But after that, I felt like absolute scum. It gets to the 28th of June, 2023, and I finally managed to kick it for good. But how? How did I manage to just kick it like that after months and months and months of trying? It's because I didn't focus on quitting that vice. I focused on quitting every single other vice that I had. No more Instagram, no more video games, staying up late, none of this bullshit. I eliminated 90% of the distractions that I did have, and so I built a better level of self-control and I started to trust myself more. So when it came time to kicking the thing that I'd been trying to quit for nearly a year by this point, I managed to do it because I'd gained this self-trust and this self-control. So once I dropped all of these vices, obviously I was faced with the same issue that I initially was. I have so much more time. And in that time, I could just choose to fill it with more vices, more dopamine, more bullshit. But this time, I chose to keep myself busy. I chose to work on my business, get up early on the weekends, and I'd go for a bike ride when it was super cold, middle of winter. Quitting anything, especially this fucked up and disgusting vice, is all a mental game. It all comes down to your mental state at the end of the day and how you approach quitting. It's your attitude and mindset towards it. You've actually got to want to stop watching it. But obviously when I did stop, I still found it super difficult because it was an addiction. So I guess you'd say I was getting porn withdrawals. So something that helped here was eliminating triggers. So first, you got to identify the triggers. What triggers you to get that urge? What triggers you to have lustful thoughts? So for me, it was provocative posts on IG and TikTok. You can't really get around that. So I just stopped going on those apps altogether. Stopped watching certain shows where, there might be attractive girl characters that would trigger that. And I also stopped watching, anything stupid on YouTube. So pretty much just stopped consuming content that was provocative. But what's interesting is a trigger can be when you're in a certain place at a certain time. So for me, it was when I would knock off of school or work on a Friday afternoon. I didn't have gym on that day, so that would mean I'd come home, get in the shower, and I'd watch it. So that was a trigger. So I had to work out how was I going to disrupt that pattern so that my mind didn't automatically think to do that and then so act on it. Because every single time without fail, I would be like, I'm not going to do it. I wouldn't do it for the whole week. Get home from work, and I'd bust one out because it was a Friday afternoon, and that was my excuse. So identify what your triggers are. Perhaps it's a place, perhaps it's talking to a certain person, and work out a way to disrupt that pattern so that it doesn't keep on happening. So for example, if you come home on a Friday afternoon, fuck that, go to the gym, go do something, get out of the house so you're not continuing to repeat this pattern again and again and again. Another thing I quickly want to mention as well was cold showers. Anytime you have a lustful thought, get into a cold shower. If you've got an ice bath, jump into an ice bath. Promise you, for at least half an hour, you're not going to have that urge. And by that point, you will have worked out something productive to do anyway. But cold showers are massive. It's going to make that chub turn into a bub. Righto, bro. So I hope you found some value in this. This video was an absolute cunt to record. I had to do it in 2 parts because my camera overheated. But with all that said, I love you, bro. Stay grinding.